For Let's Talk Las Cruces, I'm Ernesto Garcia. Glad to have you along, and thanks for tuning in throughout all the social media platforms, including now Twitch, which we added that to Let's Talk Las Cruces part as well. And, of course, throughout the Metaverse, Twitterverse, wherever the heck we're watching. And, of course, for those of you listening on the podcast as well. This is Let's Talk Las Cruces, a division of Mesilla Valley News. And, as always, this segment is brought to you by our friends over at American Document Services. Rick Jackson and his crew at 300A North 17th Street are your leading source for all your document service needs. Call them at 575-647-0060 for all your management solutions. Once again, you can check out all the great opportunities of digital scanning, document storaging, medical scanning, and storage records, paperless office conversion. You can save time, save money, and preserve natural resources, all at adslcnm.com, a proud sponsor of our Let's Talk Las Cruces segment. And we've only got a few more of these that I get to do, then somebody else will take over this part. And we're glad that we get to speak to one of our favorites on this one, and that's the Lieutenant Governor Howie Morales. And we'll get to more of the nostalgia stuff in a little bit. Let's get right to it. First, today is a big day, Lieutenant Governor. We have got recreational marijuana sales that are happening throughout New Mexico.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct there. And, whatever side in the issue that people may stand, it still is a historic day. As we see, this has been long discussion within our state, and today retail sales have taken place. And I believe there in Las Cruces was the first sales that took place in the state of New Mexico early this morning at 12:01 a.m.
Were you surprised to see how many people were in line for the recreational marijuana? And was there anything taken back? Did you kind of knew this was going to happen?
No, we suspected that this was going to be the case. There's been a lot of enthusiasm that's been building. I think that there's been a lot of the debate on either side of the issue that really showed that people were ready for this across New Mexico. And whether it's a new iPhone that's been revealed or a new type of technology, as we see, people are excited for an opportunity to do something that has never been done. And that's exactly what took place. So I wasn't surprised at all. I was glad to see the momentum and energy with that.
All right. Let's talk a little bit more about this as we go in. There are still a lot of people throughout the state trying to figure out exactly what the rules are, everything such. If you go to a state website, it still seems very confusing. I hear a lot of businesses still trying to figure it out. And of course, it also relates to how cities are implementing each of their part. Is the state going to work on some type of campaign to try to explain medical cannabis and also explain that this doesn't mean you can just go down the street somewhere and just when you want to light up something?
Yeah, that's correct. And I think that is where New Mexico is extremely blessed to have learned from other states that rushed into it and really didn't take into account some of the unintended consequences. This is something that, I was just in DC visiting with my fellow lieutenant governors from across the country, and they really agree that New Mexico's legalization approach is comprehensive and is really taking into account many of the things that weren't taken into account early on. So you're right. There's a lot of questions that are still remaining, a lot of businesses who still will want and need assistance. And then that's something that we intend to do to continue to be available and accessible. One of the things that I was really glad to see in the legislation was that not allowed in public places. So you're just not able to go in any public place and to light up and to do that, especially when there may be families around. So I think that's helpful. But I also think that it's important that we in New Mexico understand that every local community has to follow state law. I think this is helpful so there's not confusion for the consumer. There's not confusion for those who choose to utilize the recreational cannabis and really takes away some of those things that we saw in other states that weren't well defined.
I'll tell you what, I still think the campaigns need to be looked at, and I think people are still trying to figure it out, and we'll get a hold of it as soon as you can. But what if you say that other states are happy with our business model and such, what do you think are some of the things that we have done right in rolling out this implementation as we got to today?
Well, one of the things that I think was important is that we didn't just look at it from a profit standpoint. We know that that's important. We know that it has a potential to raise up to 300 million in revenues every single year. And when we're a state that's been reliant on oil and gas and the volatility of those prices per barrel, or where I'm from in Grant County, where you're reliant on the price of copper, this gives an added infusion to our revenue across New Mexico, so we're not so volatile. But I do think that we look beyond just the profit side of it. We saw the economic impact of 11,000 or more jobs that are going to be created. We also looked in to make sure that it was going to be something that was fair to the micros and to the small businesses, so they have a chance to benefit from this as well, as we know how important that is in New Mexico for our small businesses. But I also think that we took a step further and making sure that this is the first step in the war against drugs. Unfortunately, the war against drugs has been something that has plagued this country for decades, and having this approach to do so and to unclog our system, where we see over 600,000 Americans every year who are arrested because of possession. I think that this is an opportunity for us to really focus in on the violent crimes and the severe crimes and not clog up our systems. And I think that these are some of the discussions that other states are looking closely to see how it works for New Mexico. And I have every bit of confidence that it's going to work out and other states will follow our suit.
As you and Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham look at what is expected in getting the forecast and you get all this information, do you see a surge of money coming in from Texas? Do you think that around the border areas surrounding Texas and Oklahoma that you could see, and maybe even Kansas at that point, could see some funds coming through?
Well, it's no question that New Mexico has always prided itself in tourism, making sure that we offer our beautiful land, skies, water, the opportunities for people to come in. And this is just an added benefit to that. And absolutely, we're going to see an influx from people from Texas, but not only from Texas, also Arizona, who passed it just before we did, but not exactly in the same manner that we did. And I think that you're going to see New Mexico really benefit from that tourism that comes into our state. Again, we have a lot to offer, and I would hope that people that come in, whether to purchase or to utilize the sales that we do have, also recognize that there's so much more here in New Mexico that we want them to take a part of.
There are some economists that are concerned about the projections. Some are looking at it to say it may not be as much compared to when Colorado and Washington got through started. They look at some of these things. What are they seeing, and what do you feel that they might not understand?
And again, whenever something's new, there's always going to be the question of how the numbers will shape up. But I do think that it's going to be a positive for our state. When we look at it from all angles, and especially what was important to me was utilizing a lot of these dollars that come in, regardless of the final amount. And by judging of last night's and today's sales, I know it's new. I do think this is going to continue. And as word gets out, we're going to see the revenues materialize. But what I am happy to see is that many of these dollars are going to be used for prevention, going to be used for education, going to be used for opportunities, as you were saying, campaigning, to make sure that we can give kids every opportunity for success and to ensure that we can fund these programs in a proper way. So there's a lot of benefits that are coming from that. And whether the number of 300 million or more or less comes out, that's to be seen. But we do know that it's going to be a positive for New Mexico in many ways.
Well, I'll tell you what, one of the things that we're wondering as well, with the fact that this is a state, not a federal tax that has to be put in, and those tax dollars go into New Mexico, how much of it can you see be used on education? How much do you see getting used on infrastructure? Or how many you see on other things that might be like drug rehabilitation?
I'm hoping to see that there's going to be a significant amount. And let's say if the 300 million as projected would be raised, I want to make sure that there's a significant amount that's used for prevention, for education, not only for marijuana use, but also when you talk about alcohol, you talk about other type of things that we've seen with cigarettes and tobacco. This is an opportunity to utilize that. When you have 300 million, it may not go fully in an $8.5 billion budget in every single way that you'd want it to go. But I do think that it is an opportunity for us, again, to enhance many of our programs and seeing where that takes place. I also think that it's important that we continue to invest in our small businesses, that we assist in that climate to ensure that they're successful in all areas of service that they provide for New Mexicans.
All right. Want to just point out one other thing, as I did get a couple of people that asked some questions. They want to know about driving under the influence. What are some of the laws that the state can enforce with the medical cannabis and the recreational cannabis, and also things that to make sure that our drivers are safe when they're on the roads?
Yeah, safety is going to be key. And just because it's legalized, there's still the adult responsibility to make sure that everything's done in moderation, just as we have with alcohol. So I just want to remind people that it may be the first day and there may be a lot of excitement. Moderation is key. And in speaking with law enforcement and some of the plans that they've come in, they feel that they're ready to address any of the issues that may come with impairment on the road, or on the job site, again, is that we see that marijuana use is far less addictive than what we've seen with alcohol and tobacco. But yet, nonetheless, the rules that apply there will apply here. You still have to be 21 to purchase. There's still the same rules there. So I'm confident that we're going to be able to adapt pretty quickly on that.
Can you envision that our drug points that we have, our DWI checkpoints, are also going to be looking out for cannabis and as well?
Absolutely, and I really want to commend our officers, our men and lady in blue who are out there protecting us every single day. They feel that they're ready to go. I think there'll be some challenges. There's going to be things that we're going to learn, but we adjust as we go forward. Most importantly, again, is to remind people, in moderation, never to impair themselves to the point where they're putting themselves and others in danger.
We're going to continue on more with the subject. If you have a question, you can always comment. Once again, it has to be in a question form. That's the only way that I ever put those up for the Lieutenant Governor to see. Any comments you can put on the side somewhere else, but we do ask that you put those comments there, and I will gladly let the Lieutenant Governor answer those questions and everything such that also needs to be talked about. Let's talk about something that's important right now, which is high gas prices. The federal government and the President of the United States saying that they would open up some reserves to allow to try to help bring gas prices down. You were just in Washington. How much of those reserves will open up here in New Mexico, and could that be creating some jobs on our area?
It's impacted all of us, and we see what continues to take place, unfortunately, in Ukraine, and seeing the impact that it has on us in all areas of the state and the country. We watch that very closely. I do think that there's going to be some relief coming along the way. I know the federal government is committed to doing that. But we also have a responsibility in the state of New Mexico to do the best we can to provide assistance to people in our state. On Tuesday, we're going to go into a special session. And in that special session, there'll be two items that will be discussed. Specifically, those two items will be: one is providing much needed dollars for programs, other needed areas within the local communities that the legislature had originally passed, got vetoed. Having a chance to look through those, have discussion, refine some of the language, you're going to see an influx of 50 million more coming into local communities. But in addition to that is the discussion of rebates that would go directly to New Mexico taxpayers to assist them with the impact at the pump. Whether it's $300, $350, $500 rebate checks are going to come in, New Mexico could expect to see those happening rather quickly. Fortunately, in New Mexico, under our administration, we see that we've continually been at 30% or more reserves. That's important at a time of need, that we are financially responsible, but we also recognizing that those reserves belong to the people of New Mexico. And anytime that we can assist them, we're going to do so. And that's exactly what we'll be doing when we go in to special session on Tuesday.
So there's a very good chance New Mexicans could see some cash to help them out through this time with that part. Once again, but the question I was asking for, do you feel that you were able to get, while you were in Washington, an idea that some of the reserves and oil would be coming here from New Mexico to help out as well?
I think there's going to be some benefit to New Mexico. And just to clarify, in my trip to Washington, we didn't discuss that aspect of it. I had a chance to sit with Vice President Kamala Harris. Great discussion. And what we talked about specifically was about broadband, and knowing how important that is to New Mexico, especially in our colonias areas, our Native American communities, and our education and our healthcare systems. COVID has really magnified the importance of having reliable broadband. So was glad to see 130 million coming into the state from the federal side to assist us in connectivity in all parts of New Mexico, whether it's from Chamberino to Anthony to Dona Ana and other parts of Dona Ana County. This is going to be a real benefit. So that was what our meeting, as the hour that we got to spend with the vice president, really revolved around. And it was a good discussion, and the commitment that was there to assist people in New Mexico.
All right, I have to ask another question besides the infrastructure part, which I'm glad you're getting a chance to bring up and go through else. What else did you get a chance to talk to the vice president about in New Mexico, and could she be making an appearance come primary time around here?
Yeah, I'm hoping she does make an appearance. I was really impressed how down to earth she was, how willing her and her staff were to listen to our needs. And so we're looking forward to having more discussion. And we shared many things that New Mexico is doing that the rest of the country could learn from. We also spoke about maternity leave, making sure that we can have that connection from the mother to child to be expanded just from 3 months to a year in the most critical stages of a child's life. That'll be some initiatives that she'll be bringing forward. during her time there in DC. And we also talked about what's important to all of us is election integrity and making sure that our elections are safe and secure. We're fortunate in New Mexico with our Secretary of State and all of our county clerks across New Mexico who do such a good job to make sure that our votes are counted, that they're fair, that they're safe, and accessibility to the ballot box is always there. This is something that we see in other states where they're really preventing some of that taking place. We want to make sure from the federal side, as she had mentioned, was that we're going to protect the integrity and the right of every person to cast their vote, regardless of what side of the issue they stand on.
All right. Speaking with Lieutenant Governor Howie Morales, I'm going to kind of do a little bit of a crystal ball since this is one of my final interviews that I get to do with you here. If you haven't heard yet, the announcement came out earlier today as news director for Mesilla Valley News. This will be my final week. My final day will be on Monday, April 11th. So I'm getting a chance to speak with Lieutenant Governor one more time. So I get a chance to ask him some things. As we look into the crystal ball, obviously November is going to be a much different election than any others. What do you envision the things that voters are going to care most about come November here in our state?
Well, I first want to say congratulations, Ernesto, on your new position. I've enjoyed every interview that we've done together. You've always been very thorough and just very accessible. So I want to say thank you. I was hoping that it was an April Fool's joke that we're going to keep you here in the studio, but it's great opportunity for you, and we'll remain close regardless of whatever position that you're in. So best of luck there. The November election is without a doubt going to be very contentious. There's going to be a lot of discussion that takes place because you had a pandemic, a 1 in 100-year pandemic that we had to navigate through. But I would hope that New Mexicans will look and see at the results, seeing what's taking place when you have all those orange barrels that are going up for improvement for our roadways, our bridges, all of our infrastructure, the amount of money that's been put into our education system, and making sure that we recognize that even though the pandemic was tough, much resources and support was there for our small businesses. When you look at the results of what's taken place, we did this all with maintaining high reserves, all to make sure that all of our bonding ratings, our capacity for building is there and was intact. We did that. And I'm excited as we continue to push forward what is in store if the voters will have another 4 years of seeing what we can do together. You know, it's important personally for me that we took care of our educators and that we came in over our administration with a 16% over those 4 years compensation increases for all of our educators, not just our teachers, but everyone who contributes to that education system. We come in with a new early learning and childcare department, which is the envy of many states who want to do the same thing. There's so many things that we should be celebrating across the state of New Mexico, and I would hope as we put it out there that the voters will see that this has been successful and we have another 4 more years to do more successful things across our state.
All right. I did get a question about the marijuana part. Would you envision that at a UNM or NMSU game that there will be a place for recreational marijuana to be taken into?
You know, I go often to many games and many events, and I think there's always been places where that's been utilized, even though it wasn't legal at the time. But again, we want to make sure that people know that in public spaces that won't be allowed. Whether there's designated portions of that, I'm not sure how that'll be done. That goes along with the campaign and discussions that you're talking about. But as of now, any public places, you're not allowed to do that.
All righty. I want to go back just to talk a little bit about the Lieutenant Governor. Let me just state this as a news director. Our job is to be fair and impartial as much as we can. I hear from both sides of the parties. I have been blessed to be able to talk to both sides. And I can say through transparency that it's been a great honor to talk with the Lieutenant Governor. He made himself very accessible. And let me just give the best example during the pandemic. And he showed exactly what a true statesman and what a true representative does for their state or for whoever they represent. And of course, for Lieutenant Governor Howie Morales, he represents his people very well in the state of New Mexico. And if you were to eliminate the D's and R's from names, you would understand that this is a man who truly cared during the pandemic part, made plenty of visits here to Las Cruces to talk with educators during a time of crisis that we were going through. And we truly appreciate his transparency. I believe our a team will still try to send some of these things in for an NBA awards. That's fine. It doesn't take an award because what it takes is the fact that the Lieutenant Governor always was willing to take the questions, all the hard ones, anything that we could throw at him, he did. And so we appreciate you, Lieutenant Governor, and your staff, James, and everyone else, for keeping us informed, especially during the pandemic time. It is great that we're not talking to each other with masks and that we're able to actually now sit here and go through here. At the same time, I do thank you and your leadership in the roundhouse. I have a lot of friends that are on, like I said, on both sides of the aisle. I trust a lot of these people, but the fact that the most transparent, we can say honestly, and here at Mesilla Valley News, we thank you for being the most transparent with us throughout this time. And we hope that whoever takes this position here will continue to do that for you as well.
I look forward to that and wishing you the best. Thank you again for allowing me to be a guest on this, and look forward to all the future success that you have.
And I know we'll have to look at some baseball games because you're a Dodgers fan. I'm a Stros fan. So maybe there's a chance we'll have that rematch of 2017. Is that all right?
We need the rematch and on a fair level playing field. And I'm confident
there
that
we
will come
in. No, I appreciate it. Lieutenant Governor, if people want to know more from you, hear from you, how can they reach you and get hold of you?
Yeah, we always like to listen or to hear and to listen to input from people across the state. Howie.Morales at state.nm.us. That's Howie.Morales at state.nm.us. Please send us your input. Again, it's always my goal to try to be the most accessible lieutenant governor in this country. And by having you reach out, I want to make sure that I continue to uphold that promise that I've made to each one of you.
And as always, we appreciate the Lieutenant Governor's time. And once again, please keep in touch with him. And of course, you'll also see him come down. And I have a feeling for Aggie Lobo games this year, he'll be down as well. Once again, you can learn more from the Lieutenant Governor through the website, state website. This segment's brought to you by our friends over at American Document Services at 300 North 17th Street in Las Cruces. Call 575-647-0060. And I truly mean this. Thank you again for serving as a politician. It's not an easy thing to do. You are our Lieutenant Governor, and we appreciate you for doing that. And thank you for your time, Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you, Ernesto.
We'll be back with more next week on Let's Talk Las Cruces.